Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. So before we begin with our derivation, we're going to kind of try to physically renormalize just kind of like what is the simplest thing so we can big scale trends of the universe, of physical evolution. I don't like, even the word universe is too like, I feel like I'm just going to, I don't even like, but the physical evolution of things. And so, right, what is currently identified as the Big Bang is not the beginning of things, because the beginning of thing was ing, and so you have vibration, and that vibration stabilizes, then you have the potential for movement, which is called energy, and there's no space yet. And then from that energy, from that potential of movement, you have mass stabilizing, and then you're able to move. And so what is currently identified in cosmology as the Big Bang is that stabilization of R2, of all physical systems with two-dimensional components. We have this microwave background, and again, temperature is the vibration of constituent discrete things. And so, again, the reason you have a temperature, if someone puts a thermometer in your mouth or hits you with a little laser, is because there's internal gaps within your mass. If you have electrons, protons, again, those are your physical stabilization, positive and negative charge. I still think whatever magnetism is more stabilized in the immediate. You have no magnetic monopoles that exist. But regardless, that is not the point. You just have two-dimensional components. And so, but we have, that is why that stabilization event is why the early universe or the early R3 or post R2 stabilization is an extremely, extremely low state of entropy, extremely low disorder. And then that new property stabilizes charge, and then you have repulsion. And so, but then additionally, right, the universe is cooling down. When things cool down, they contract. So when you cool down, like you physically contract. When the universe cools down, it physically contracts. And then again, like I said, temperature isn't located anywhere. It's the collective vibrational state of the constituent discrete systems within a bigger system. And so when you think about the universe as a whole, when it cools down, its size gets smaller, but it's not, the mass is not getting smaller, it's the amount it jiggles. That discrete thing is going to jiggle less. So you're going to go from like boom, boom, boom to smaller, smaller, smaller. So overall, there's a stabilization event, which was identified as the Big Bang, but a period of extremely low entropy. That is when these phase changes occur. And so, again, once we have the stabilized R2, and I'm going back to, we live in 3 dimensions, you have geometric entropy. You have the ability to vibrate because you have discrepancy. The easiest geometric way to see that, if you have a center point across the vertice of a closed polygon, such as a triangle, pentagon, so on and so forth, all odd number polygons from the vertex to the center going directly through to the other side, from the vertex to the center is longer than from the center to the other side. Allowing that discrepancy is the geometric reason things can vibrate. Point being, when things cool down, they vibrate less, they take up less space. And so, and then each galaxy, or each, even more generally, each locality acts as a point sphere to other localities. So logically, what is defined as infinity, right? What is defined, right? We say this thing exists, then not that thing, right? Clearly finite, right? Finite versus infinite versus undefined. Right? What is the difference between indefinite and infinite? And so the point being is we have this idea of finiteness, discreteness, defined because of physical independence. Again, my notebook is made of mass, I am made of mass, we are connected, but we're not physically touching, it can move independent of me. And so then in current day cosmology, they'll say the universe is expanding. That's wrong, simply for the fact that the initial state of that energy condensing, it had already like established its boundaries, so to speak. And then you're condensing, the mass is contracting from that energy field. And so what it looks like when galaxies are like going away, because remember, right, we're electrical systems, right? There's electric difference between the nucleus and the electron cloud, but they're stable, right? The charges kind of cancel out. So that's where you get physical stability, right? There's electrical currents going through my brain, but I have myelin sheaths over my nerves, so it's not, right, this part of my body is not conducting electricity. But point being is, as these things cool down with this even internal mass gaps, systems are receding, but it's not physically getting further away, it's just localizing. And so that is where you get these measurements of receding galaxies or things getting farther away faster. But it's really, and again, it's already been identified as the reciprocal physical case of contraction. And again, for the simple empirical reason, things are getting cooler, things are getting closer, it's contracting. And so that's physically what's going on. A period of very low entropy, very little disorder, a lot of potential for movement, a new property gets stabilized, and then that's the environment we all live in. And so, again, the concept of infinity, I got to comment on, again, this is one of the, right, finiteness is defined. There's still some resolution, pretty much what I talked through you now, viewing what we have defined as the universe as just a locality, acting as a point sphere to other localities. In the same way, someone's really far away, looks like a dot, they walk up closer to you, you can see the finer details. And so in reality, what we've defined as the universe or the observable universe, again, literally one verse, which is really verse vibration, but right, in the same way, love is not physically located anywhere. It's a dynamic, but it's still well defined. And so, I just posted a short video, and again, this is like I even used my own here. I said it's out there, but it's not out there. It's just underdeveloped and never identified. What is infintessimality, right? Its general form is infintessimality. Has never even been remotely articulated in any aspect of mathematics. And then infinity, if you take any person again and say, what is infinity? They'll draw the little 8 symbol thing and say it's that. Okay, what physical process is that pairing to? But then again, we have very clear, again, puberty, the inflation period of the universe. There's very clear growth rates difference between addition, right? You take all of the natural numbers and add them. That is going to grow slower than if you took all of the natural numbers and multiplied them, which is going to grow slower than if you took all of the natural numbers and exponentiated them. And so that rate difference is all apparent because of physical processes. And so again, just trying to pull all of this stuff together, but infinity is well defined. And so again, but it's conceptual, and it's not even a dynamic like love. If you have 3 galaxies, one here, and one here, this galaxy can communicate with this one. These 2 galaxies can't communicate with each other, but they can communicate with this one, they can communicate with this one. And so that definiteness, that finiteness of existence exists, it's there. But your ability to interact with it doesn't. So the observable universe is a locality. And that awareness that there's other things definitively out there, that is infinite. Right? That is what is your conceptualization of infinity. Infinity is well defined. So point being is I post up a short and saying just what is the inverse of infinity? And then again, people will typically have opposition and inversion as the same thing, but again, there's no physical opposite to mass. And so you don't have complete inversion, right? Is light the inverse of mass? Right? Light is effectively it's the infinitesimality limit of mass. Right? Something has mass, light is not mass. So as you take a thing with mass and try to get it down to no mass, you're taking an infinitesimal limit, right? The things you can take away are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so in the same way you have this universal contraction, systems that are acting as local spheres, they get smaller, they get smaller, they get smaller. The rate at which they can contract is also getting, right? Mass takes up space, so they can't contract to 0. I mean, you can't have electrons, fermions pile on top of one another. So that contraction rate, that is well defined physically, it's well defined mathematically, and it has never been articulated anywhere in mathematical ontology ever. Conceptually, with the right words, ever. So then you ask somebody, what is the inverse of infinity? And inversion isn't opposition. I mean, we made that difference last time. But again, this level of differentiation, because it's purely logical, well, it's not purely logical, but I've never seen it even remotely begin to be articulated in mathematics. And so, regardless, that's what you have is, again, infinity is well defined, which is kind of, again, it's like one of these false paradoxes, but it's infinite, it's not finite. And the finiteness is the observable universe, but it is well defined, the awareness. And so it's like it's not really purely logical, but it's the inverse of infinity. Infinity is well defined. Nobody's articulated what infinity actually is. And then to find the inverse of infinity is just like, It's one of those mathematical steps where it's humongous, and I just knew from the get-go, no one's even like appreciate what's going on here. But you don't have a physical opposite of mass, and chronology happened. And so this natural opposition we have is strictly because of this completion of R2. And so, right, yin yang, up, down, left, right, that is the natural opposition, is the logical product, the logical emergence from the physical stability of 2. And so I knew that was going to be, but it's a simple question. It's a simple question. But again, to me, if you just go ask any mathematician from a preschooler up until the dean at Harvard, they're just going to be like, it's this symbol. Okay, what is it physically? They'll have no articulation of what we just said. None, zero. So it still doesn't resolve the question. Again, it's still, this is finite. Why is the everything, like, what's the shape of everything? Again, there's sections of this proof where I don't have access to the intuition because it's purely contained within the section of language that I'm assessing. So you can even go back to, I don't know, like 150 episodes ago, I say I can't just willy-nilly kind of pull up the intuition for these phase changes because it has to be directly inferred from the language. Because again, we live in R3, all of this stuff is inferred, but it's definitive, it happened, right? The past is set. And so all of the big physics we've done, happens again with that 10 to the minus 36 seconds or whatever that time has occurred. And we're showing that consistency in that evolution with language, right? Because fractal type of things where it's all, geometric structure grows or evolves the same. Consistency grows the same over systems, right? And so logic is a system, mathematics is a system. It's just not, it's the emergent system from the things that exist, mass. And so that was a big logical step, but it still doesn't, if you just said what is the shape of everything, it's still well defined enough where it's like I'm not personally satisfied for the derivation of sensorality. Again, I've already completed all of these steps. Speciality within ITY, sealed the deal on all of that stuff 10 years ago. But walking you through any intuition that I can present as it comes to me, because it is such a physical thing, like limited. But it's always fun just to get profoundly disrespected. And again, I don't expect anything from meaningful comments on YouTube. It's just like, I don't get how people see something. And one of these comments, I'll get it, I might read it, might not. But it's to the effect of like, he starts off his comments like a whole paragraph. It's like, have you ever thought about making your videos better? Have you ever been getting better at explaining things? Because it looks like you're really passionate, but like, you're not good at explaining things. And it's just like, dude, I am walking you through a derivation of a complete mathematics that you have literally never seen before, and there's a video and you can click it, but what happens is, again, I say something that they immediately, intuitively kind of like, they start thinking, and then they can't follow it. And then again, they just project that I don't know what's going on, so nobody knows what's going on. And it's disgusting. It is the most profoundly disrespectful thing that could ever occur. But again, is there any maturity, values, or ability to behave in this society? Absolutely not. But again, you demonstrate that one time, you have no role in science. If science team does not allow me to have access to the data for any reason whatsoever, it is obstruction of justice in a historical capacity. But again, that's overall physically what's happening. Simply a period or a time of extreme order, very low entropy, a new physical property stabilized. But it, like I said, the universe, when you think of the Big Bang and it's just like it explodes outward, like the intro to the TV show, that's not, it's contracting down as opposed to expanding outward. Because before there's mass, there's no concept of shape. There's nothing to move through. And the absence of mass is what you move through. But yeah, so that's what I got there. And then again, simply temperature, things are independent, things are discrete, and temperature is decreasing. Things are cooling down. So what is something to anything, right? Nothing, anything, everything, right? Anything has arbitrary, it's an arbitrary something. All mathematical sets increase because entropy always increases. And so now, again, once I even put a little exclamation mark, I was pretty happy. But again, I'm trying to show you this work. If you have to like strain to think your logic, we are just not at this completion thing. Because again, none of this stuff is confusing. Like it's not confusing. It's getting the concepts in the right order, and then you just state the answers. But all mathematical, so it's again, so now we get back to the pairing of mathematics to physics. These mathematics and these growths of functions have to pair to physical systems. That's where they come from. And so we have very clear, again, addition growing slower than multiplication, multiplication growing slower than exponentiation. And so it's modeling that entropy, right? You can't stabilize more potential for movement than there was entropy to begin with. And so, yeah, I can't really say anything else there, but entropy is all, why is entropy always increasing? Again, because once you stabilize mass, you have this geometric inefficiency. And so you can't reach a state of no entropy anymore. I mean, that was the phase change. And so what is temperature to entropy, right? I would say temperature is entropy, right? You vibrating, that heat is not, you can't use that system cannot use it internally for work. It can't do something with that heat radiating. But then radiation, again, what concept am I missing? I'm missing a concept. I've already done it before. What is it? What is a sensor? What are we doing? But what is temperature to entropy? Temperature is temperature inefficient? Entropy is inefficiency. Entropy is disorder. Is temperature disorder? Yeah, I mean, it's just things shaking around. Vibration is entropic. Something's going on. I'm missing something very simple, and I don't know. Infinity is a subset of universality, right? That concept, that awareness, all of the things that exist, that those three galaxies, these two that don't interact with each other, that's part of the universe. The universe is well defined as all things. And so infinity, one locality of the universe, with the inability to interact with other sections, is a subset. What is position to version? And so this came from something, right? Opposition versus inversion. We just take off the op and the in. So what is position to version? Right? If you have a version of something, it's an iteration, it's a generation of something. If you have a position, right? And so placement, getting back to like the ordinality, like what comes first, position or placement? Or what's the difference between a place and a position? An isotope is a version. Sensorality is versionality. Right? So now we kind of got the universe off of there, version. Sensorality is envisionality. Sensorality is rational, right? Third ear Spanish for some reason, but irrational. Again, we've proven that the only numbers that exist, which is no numbers exist, the only numbers that have unique physical pairings are rational numbers. Irrational numbers don't make any sense because you have definitive discrete objects and they're compared to one another. That's what a fraction is. And so you kind of rational, again, I don't even, like I said, I'm doing this off the top of my head where I don't know what mathematicians define the rational numbers, the natural numbers. It's just these words have meaning. If you use them as an adjective to modify number and then base is I've already swallowed that whole thing up. And empirically, numbers clearly don't exist anywhere. We basically have rational numbers, natural numbers, and whole numbers, which are kind of all the same thing. Are emotions rational? Right now we have to, again, map the range to the base. What is the range of motion? Emotion. But are emotions rational? Do emotions make sense? Can emotions be irrational? No, obviously. But the question stands. Are emotions rational? They want you to be. They kind of help you become more efficient. Efficiency is rational. But can your emotions lead you to irrational behavior? That's pretty much mostly, right? We're tending towards entropy again. Theme is, right? And that connects physics and mathematics, right? Phys-ics is literally just is kind of like separated by rhythm in some consonants. Very literally. Mathematics is literally thematics. So theme is. Thematics are. Vibration is translational. Again, there's more direction, right? Inversion, you're kind of thinking vertical. Translation, you think like horizontal. Not really sure, but it keeps popping up. Sensorality is slationality. Petrification is shocking. Sensorality shocks. Suspension limits shock. Sensorality is suspicion. Infinity is not endless. Again, it's an awareness. The universality, that is the thing where it's like, what's the shape of all things? There's stuff is clearly discrete, so everything should have a shape. I agree, but it's some sort of locality, and then there will be a much more satisfying resolution with the demonstration of incompleteness, because our knowledge is incomplete. An invasion is an infraction. An infraction is a violation. Sensorality is pervasive. The universe is pervasive. One verse is ubiquitous. Ubiquitality pervades all things. Again, just continuing on with more linguistic logic derivation. Again, because we have physics, the stuff that exists. We have order, and then we have logic from order. And then describing logic is with words is effectively mathematics or linguistics. But again, linguistics to me is the letters, which is geometric linguistics, which is a whole complete math subject that no one's ever seen before, but it's just as real. 1 + 1 still equals 2, and there's still relationships, geometric relationships between the shapes of the letters. I do most of that stuff intuitively, but you go from physics, again, to order, which produces logic. Because again, if you sit there and you Morse code, right, there's logic to that sequence of tapping your pen or blinking a light, and that gives you the concept of a language. Then we vocalize, and so we have words. And so that's where you get mathematics. We are deriving the entirety, we've already derived all of mathematics. Now we're simply trying to go from physics, direct logical sequence, linguistical proof. We're not even getting to what would be identified as proper mathematics. Because it's more general, it's more comprehensive, it's more complete. Well, it is complete. It's not. There's no more or less complete. There's just completeness. So that is what I have for you today. I continue on to work through this logic. And again, if any of this part, if you're still watching this video somehow, all of this shit resolves. It's already been resolved in the context of speciality. I've already answered these questions. It's just, again, when you go through each section of ontology and it takes you 7 years and you see that I derive all day, every day, it's not like I take days off or you could take days off. This stuff is always happening. And so there's just points when I can show you poignant things that is tremendous. So again, my rights continue to be violated. It is profound. I'm literally being brutalized to death. I'm being held against my will. I've been seeking asylum. My rights are profoundly violated. I sit here and I articulate that calmly. Again, I'm not some erratic dude at all. It's just, I just don't get how insane this world really is. All I've asked for is a little bit of money so I can eat properly, sleep properly, and work. And it's impossible. You're not allowed to work. And I've never seen a more vitriolic, disgusting response than true scientific denial. And so you see it every day in my comments. All of that stuff is just, again, historical documentation if it is deleted or refused from being prosecuted in a capacity. That is what I have for you today. Again, we're at the point of this derivation where I just need one concept to lock in, and this stuff it will all reduce. But regardless, I don't even care. I don't want to wait one more day, one more second, one more minute. That part 260 is a complete mathematical reduction, easily the biggest mathematical result ever produced. And then again, like I'm talking you through the inverse of infinity, which again, like that whole each step of that conversation is never been even remotely articulated in mathematical ontology ever anywhere, period. And that would give you like a Fields medal every 2 seconds. I mean, geometrical linguistics is a whole thing. Dimensionless analysis literally comprehensively encapsulates. You can derive dimensional analysis from dimensionless analysis, because that's where you get fractions, right? Dimensional analysis is the assessment of fractions, and we've just derived all of that. And so the amount of results that we've produced in the past 7 months alone has restarted. Right? There's no point to look at my old paper anymore, like zero. For whatever reason, I continue to be profoundly and extensively tortured. It is all illegal, and I'm simply documenting as much as I can. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.